Okay, this is just going to be a quick video showing what it is that I'm growing on my front yard vegetable garden. So right here I am on, here's the street out there, my driveway, neighbor's driveway, lawn, clover patch, and up here I have my front yard raised bed garden about 2 feet out from, bump out from the fence along the stretch of a 50-foot fence. We'll take a quick walk down, and here's what I've been getting lately. Just this morning, I haven't pulled anything out of the garden for a few days now. So this morning I had 3 of these peppers. These are sweet peppers. I think they're called cubanella, and they are way too hot for me or anyone in my family to eat. So I'm going to ask one of my neighbors who I think does like hot spicy peppers. There were sweet peppers and spicy peppers. I never grew peppers before. These were labeled as sweet peppers. I thought maybe those would be mild enough for me, but they are really, really spicy. But at any rate, they're looking good. I got a few of those. I could have gotten more. I'll show you where some things got overgrown. I have some white eggplant here, so a couple of those, and dozens of cherry tomatoes, and some of those are fully ripe already. I could eat them, kind of right out of the, coming right out of the garden, and more of them, will ripen up a little bit off the vine. One of the things that happened to some of my tomatoes is that some of them split, and we had something like 8 inches of rain here in New Jersey within the period of a couple of days, a day and a half or something. So certainly some of the tomatoes just, I kind of think of it that they just sucked up more water than they could actually hold for the skin of them, and they kind of cracked open. So at any rate, that's what happened to some of them. But lots of them are fine. So at any rate, let's take a quick look around the garden. One thing I had a video on recently was my gourds that are growing here up my basketball hoop. So that's got to be, I don't know, at least 15 feet tall, and this is 10 feet across. So if you think of it, I have, I don't know, maybe if you tallied it all up, I'd have, 100 square feet if you looked at both sides and up the other thing of gourd vines growing. And I was saying, boy, I haven't seen any gourds, but I've seen lots of vegetative growth or leafy growth. Look at the size of this leaf right here. My hand doesn't even cover half of the leaf, and these leaves are really velvety soft. And my son spotted one of the gourds right in here. So these are similar to the birdhouse gourds, but these are what are called small gourds. You can see here relative to the size of my hand. So this is bigger than my fist. It's probably now about the size of a softball, and we'll see how that comes along through the rest of the summer. I think there's another one maybe higher up as well. I did a video at the time when I was trellising these up again, there it goes up the basketball hoop. Here I put a melded wire mesh, kind of like a rusty 6-gauge mesh that you would use for pouring concrete, and that's the wire mesh that you would have in there. And I had picked up a couple of those and used them for trellises up there, and I had an extra one, and so I put it along here, and just within a week, pretty much the vines are just all grown over it. You can really barely see that the mesh is even there. And I've just kind of trained them as they come along. As these keep coming out, every once in a while I'll take one and just kind of tuck it through the mesh. This is a 6-gauge wiring with 6 inch by 6 inch by 6 inch, so a 6-inch square. That you can pass through and put things through. So that's doing well, and that keeps the vines up off of the, just up off of the grass, where they get moldy or, all the water or whatever from when it rains or watering lawn or any of those kinds of things. We'll take a real quick walk around the front of my garden here, and I guess if I had to make one point educationally out of this for myself or anyone else who's interested, is the dangers of planting things too closely. So some areas it worked out fine and great. So I've got my basil here in front of my cherry tomatoes, and they're sprawling and climbing up the trellis, and that's fine. I've been clipping them down because they've been growing. The fence is 7 feet high, and they've been growing another couple of feet above that. I've been chopping them off up top. Basil doing great down front. My wife and her friend have been making some pesto, which has been awesome. I also have marigolds, which are edible flowers. I have lots of cherry tomatoes and more basil. And then here I have summer squash growing, and I really have to say that I mostly crowded it out with these marigolds. And although the marigolds are indeed colorful and they look nice, and marigolds are edible flowers, so you can eat these, I have to say I don't especially love the taste of the marigolds. They're all right. I can eat them. If I was starving, I'd eat those before I would starve, and they can add a little bit of color if you put a marigold flower on your or the petals onto your salad. So that's fine, but it's not my favorite from a taste perspective. Maybe I'll get used to it. I certainly will keep eating it or trying it. But one of the things they did was there are dwarf marigolds that I have over there that worked out fine. The regular marigolds, planting them in compost, the compost and rock dust mineral are, I guess is such a good, growing medium or such healthy soil that these marigolds now are, some of these here are up to, this is, chin height to me, and I'm 6 feet tall approximately. So, these are, at least a good 5.5 feet tall, these marigold plants, which is, you could say, wow, that's fantastic. The marigolds are doing so great, except that right behind them I had planted a lot of my summer squash, my yellow summer squash. So you can see here where the summer squash came up fine over here, and then in the area that's behind the marigolds, there is no squash growing. And then over on the far side here, there's a little bit trying to work its way out. And although, again, it's fine to grow the marigolds, and I'm happy to have them in some capacity, and they add a little bit of color, to the lawn, to the garden aesthetically. However, I would much rather be growing more summer squash than crowding them out, with the marigolds, which, again, although they're edible, I don't eat a lot of them, to be honest. Growing back in here, we have more of the white eggplant. So looking through again, here's the grid, that I've been talking about just a minute ago. 6 gauge. 6 inch by 6 inch hole, so this big, nice 6 inch square to reach on through to harvest. And you can see those the white eggplant that are growing there. This particular variety called Gretel, or whatever that's worth. So at any rate, that is the issue as far as overcrowding with the marigolds kind of taken over against my squash. Also over here, this far end here, I have potatoes growing in the corner there. I have a couple of gourds growing, and the gourds really took over the spot where I am growing my peppers. And along those lines, I'm almost shocked that these peppers have been coming along at all. I don't know if you'll be able to see in here, but there's one that's still kind of like a yellowish green. Here's another one over here that is starting to turn red, but I have to say they get very little sun there because they're so crowded over. So it's kind of I have to say I don't officially use kind of a formal square foot gardening where I really think about exactly how close the next thing should be, and I kind of treat this as, I'll just plant lots of stuff together and it'll all work out, and the soil is so rich and healthy because it's all compost and rock dust mineral that I can pretty much plant right on top of each other. And in some areas that works well, but I do have to admit that in some areas it gets away from me. Along those and other things that are coming up, here is some nasturtium, which is a edible flower. This is the leaf of it, obviously. I don't see many of them that have flowered yet, but they're climbing on their way up. The leaf is really peppery, so sometimes I do take a nasturtium leaf and rip it up and put it in with my pasta, and it gives it a peppery flavor to it. And I do have, just noticed this morning, some cucumbers here that are pretty huge. Looking green on the bottom, a little yellow at the top here. I've got a, sort of and another one here. You can barely see it maybe through there. So anyway, I've got this week I didn't get out to my front yard garden too much. I'm kind of now that the weekend is here, just getting back to it. But anyway, that is video saying what's been going on lately out here. So I've been harvesting some stuff, and that's great. But again, some stuff is getting overcrowded, and that's fine too. What grows, grows. It's works out, and learn as you go. That's one of the fun things about it. And also, I think I'm getting less actual produce maybe this year or a later start than last year, and I don't know if that's because it was so hot in July. July, I think, was June or July was like record-breaking heat here. And also, I seem to see less bees in my garden this year, so I don't know if other people are noticing that as well. But I think I have a lot less bees than I did in previous years, and I think I have more green viney growth for my tomatoes and certainly for my gourds compared to actual production of produce like the actual gourd or the tomatoes or what have you. So again, not doing terribly in those regards, but I do think last year was a more bountiful year in that regard. All right, well, that's it, and as always, happy gardening.